Ole Miss already has a fantastic defensive line class, and on Friday, it might just get a little bit better.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into this crossover of Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal. I'm your host, Brian Smith, along with longtime Ole Miss fan and former employee Steven Willis. Appreciate everybody stopping in. We're going to be discussing the Rebels roster. It's getting better, but where is it getting better long-term and why? We'll talk about that later in the show. 5 for 5 is finally officially been announced by the NCAA. How does it impact Ole Miss, and why is that also an advantage for them, but also might be an advantage for a very prime rival? Steven actually brought that up before the show. We'll talk about that. There's good and bad with that for Ole Miss fans. And the number one thing in this show, we're going to be talking about Antwan Jackson, the young man that I hinted about in the opening, defensive lineman / athlete from the greater Memphis area. This is a player that, quite honestly, is probably going to be a guy that I have a hard time picking one spot that he's going to play. He's 6'5", 6'6", plays tight end in high school, plays some D tackle. Like, I can look at this from a lot of different perspectives, Steven, depending on what you want to go by. On his X profile, he lists himself at 6'6", 245. Watching the film, he's got really soft hands. If you wanted to play him at tight end, he could do that. Defensive linemen are supreme, though, but Ole Miss already has 6 D linemen in the boat. There's so many little nuances to this from a recruiting perspective. All my brain sensory organ, like they're all just like firing off like this, you go this direction or this direction, a lot of different things. What did you like about Antwan's film, and why do you think the Rebels are after him?
Length. That's the thing that stands out with a player like this. And in case you're wondering why that's important, if you're a novice to this channel and to Brian's channel, it's going to allow you to get to the quarterback a little bit quicker than you could if you were a 6-foot player. The length is going to make you a handful to get the ball over the top of you. It's going to make your defense much more effective. And this is a player, Antwan Jackson, 6'5", 6'6", 240 pounds, but that is without a college weight program. So you get this player that can be a jack and do the stuff that Blake Purchase and those guys are going to do on the other side. But if he's able to put on some weight, all of a sudden he turns into a Jared Ivey, and he's playing on the other side of the defensive line. I think that's the play for Ole Miss if this happens. Now, he's an extremely athletic guy. We talked about Laramie Tunsil back in the day, how nifty he was, and his feet allowed him to be an elite player. That's no different here. If you can excel in the tight end position, you can really excel playing on the defensive line, and it doesn't matter if you grow into that strong side defensive end or if you stay in that jack position. Antwan Jackson is a guy that can make you better at either one of them because of his feet. I do think he's defensive side of the ball, though.
Again, he could play tight end, but D-line is just it's such a premium. Unless you're just at a terrible spot with tight ends, I don't know why you would do that. And, of course, you could always put him in a package for goal line or something because he's a good athlete. He does have, to be honest, pretty natural hands, which most D-linemen do not. I'll just leave it at that. There's a reason they don't get many interceptions. But he might snag one at some point, Stephen, during his college career because he's pretty nifty. Here are his stats from last year. He plays for White Station High School in Memphis. 5.5 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, 47 total tackles, 7 quarterback pressures, 3 forced fumbles, an interception. And on offense, he had 11 catches for 216 yards. So, again, this is an all-around athlete that is projected on D-line because, quite honestly, it's the value position. Like the difference in the NFL draft, a guy going in the 3rd round at tight end or 3rd round D-line, I can tell you which one's going to make more money. It's not going to be very close. It'll be about a 50% increase if I was to guess. As for where Ole Miss sits with D-linemen, because this is a Bama, Ole Miss, Missouri, Memphis battle, I don't know where he's going. I've heard different things. We'll see. But if they don't get him, they have 6 in the boat. Stephen, when was the last time the Rebs signed 6 D linemen in a class? High school kids.
Probably, I don't know if it was 6, but the class where Cam Franklin and Will Eccles was in, there were still 3 other defensive linemen that popped her in that class as well. Okay. There might be an edge that got thrown in that I'm not thinking about, but this is kind of a Pete Golding thing. Those guys are getting ready to go to the league. You need to get the next class that is coming in that takes a year to develop and stuff like that, and you can replace them. Granted, Ole Miss is doing some work on the offensive line side of the ball too. I mean, with Antonio Berry and those guys on the front, all of this is – they're in a very good spot. And you talk about all the time that the thing that separates Ole Miss from what they used to be, they've always been able to get skilled players. The wide receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks, it's the trench play. And this feels like a concerted effort to attack high school for offensive and defensive linemen. And that is a good thing. As Pete Golding, say what you want to about him. He built the player personnel department at Ole Miss over the last couple of years and getting them ready to go. And he saw how they did it at Alabama under Nick Saban. He trying to incorporate some of that same stuff, and a lot of that has to do with improving the trench play.
Absolutely. When we come back, we'll go over Mitchell Turner, BenJarvus Shoemaker, Jamarkus Pittman, and how it would work out with Antwan if he came into the class. Again, they've got 6. Will they make it 7? That is next, right here on this crossover, Locked on the Portal and Locked on Ole Miss. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here. Every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. Now FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal plays. Bet on a match, get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals mean more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. So obviously it's been a great run for the United States, and amen to that. But there are other matches going on. If you want to have a little more fun, every goal that's scored in a match that doesn't have a Messi or whoever in it, that's just one way of many. You can have some fun with FanDuel. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Steven, you want to tell everybody about the Everydayer Club you got going on, my friend?
Yes. Basically, you can catch all the ad-free stuff. You can do all that with the Everydayer Club. But our specific flavor of the Everydayer Club comes with Mike Huseman, Coach Corey Burton, and Dalen Flowers. They have different roles inside of that, and the only way you get their content is through the Everydayer Club. 7-day free trial right now. We're always glad to have you. Locked on OleMiss.supercast.com, and you can see exactly what we do. And this being the off season, this is an opportunity for you to keep everything fun, and B, it's also a downtime. So if you're scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to get Ole Miss content, the Everydayer Club is an option for you.
Absolutely. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the defensive linemen that are in the boat. They got Mitchell Turner and BenJarvus Shoemaker. They're top 100 recruits by Rivals. I've got both of them as top 100 recruits on the Portal podcast, and there's a lot of guys, quite honestly, that probably should rank them higher and respect them more. But I'm just going to go ahead and say something that it seems like a public service announcement every time I come on your show. Mississippi kids don't get a lot of respect because it's a hard state to cover. There's like one kid in every town kind of deal. That's not ideal. And they're still ranked top 100. If those kids were in Atlanta, they'd probably be ranked even higher than they are. For the record, Rivals has Mitchell at 40. They've got BenJarvus Shoemaker at 54. I've got Mitchell Turner even higher. I got him 36th. But again, they're top 100 recruits. I don't really see any
That's
way.
5-star watch, by the way. You're getting close.
They're really close. I don't think there's any doubt that they have a chance to make an early impact. But here's the part I want you to help me with, Stephen. They're both in that 270, 280 range. They're both give or take 6'3". Where do you think they're going to play them? And do you think that the Rebs are going to go with consistently just 3-man front, or are they going to run any 4-man? Or what are they going to do? Because that completely changes how you would align them from play to play.
Yeah, whenever you talk about even and odd fronts, 3-man and 4-man fronts, I mean, I understand that. But the way I've noticed from Pete Golding is trying to run an even and an odd front, running basically the same personnel. That's the reason Jared Ivey, who is big enough to be a 5 technique in a 3-man front, but he can also do a strong side defensive end and a 4-man front. We always talk about that particular player. Mitchell Turner kind of fits that. He's kind of, if anybody remembers watching this, Isaac Gross in the 2014 class, undersized as a defensive lineman. He played 3 technique because of his get off. He is going to be able to do some work at strong side defensive end. I think Jamarkus Shoemaker, he's a 3 technique. He is somebody that in the heart, when they go 4-man, he's going to be the 3 technique. When they go 3-man, you're going to have 2 5 techniques of Mitchell Turner and Jamarkus Shoemaker. And then you have the Jack running around, which if you're going off of this recruiting class like Keyshawn Taylor or maybe even Antwan Jackson, depending on what happens. But I think that is the goal. Jamarkus Pittman, by the way, is the nose guard.
No doubt.
Either defense. Yeah, that there's no doubt in that one. But that is how the defensive linemen, I think, are being constructed in this class.
Yeah, just for what Mr. Willis is referring to, we'll talk about him next. But Jamarkus is a couple of biscuits shy of 330 from what we've heard. He's about 6'3", 320 listed, which usually means they're bigger. In my experience, it usually goes higher than lower. And he's another kid out of the Memphis area. He attends the Academy of Sciences in Memphis, Tennessee. He's already committed to the Rebels. But I think you're right. I think some 4-eye, some 5 as DNs, depending on the situation, whether they play him inside or outside the tackle for both of them. And I think each of Turner and Shoemaker can play D tackle in like a traditional 4-2-5 or 4-3. How they would line them up together, all that stuff is taken care of later. But one could play end, one could play D tackle in a 4, or you could just make them both ends in a 3-man front. And again, Jamarkus he's your 0 tech or 1 tech, depending on what you're running. He could play the 0. He's a big one. So you're good there. Pittman is ranked by ESPN as the number 260 player. And I just want to throw something out there. I know rankings are kind of goofy with nose guards because, and I'm not picking on them, you're never going to get a lot of stats as nose guards. You're just not. No. Do you remember Ted Washington that played in the NFL forever? He played for New England. He was their 390-pound when he played.
Yeah, I remember him.
He was about 390. They used to joke that he was a couple of biscuits from 400, and sometimes I kind of wondered if he was 400. Nobody could move it. Like, it was ridiculous. If you have a nose guard like that, and he might get 1 tackle a game because he took up a double team, what is his value to the guy standing behind him at inside linebacker? You can't put a numerical number on that. Like, it's not possible because he sets it up for everybody else to get all the tackles. You could see that with Pittman.
Yeah, you get a nose guard and everything. If he is a guaranteed double team on every play, it's like you're playing a 4-man front as far as them eating the lineman up. And the linebackers are going to be much more effective because of the role that he plays. He is a force multiplier. If you cannot see the stats and you can't quantify it individually, he makes everybody else better. Jamarkus Pittman could be the reason that Jamarkus Shoemaker, Mitchell Turner, and whoever is at linebacker are all SEC players, even though Pittman might not be one. But I tell you what, and this is the guarantee, you might look at these numbers and things that are going on, and then when he's a junior in college and all that, getting ready to go to the NFL, I guarantee you they're paying attention. They've made those calls, and if you are the force multiplier that we think you are, those guys will take notice even more so than the scout geniuses of what's going on as far as stats go.
100%. And again, if you look at the major programs in college football, like use Miami and Oregon, they recruit D-line. Look at the size of the guys they recruit. They were both in the Final Four. There's a reason They stuff everybody. It's 2nd and 8 all day. Their interior D linemen are massive. It's just a pain in the rear end to run inside zone, split zone, gap, any of that. 2nd and 8 is not friendly for an offensive coordinator. And that's the objective of running those fronts. And to take it another step further, when Nick Saban's teams were at their best, they always had a Tay Cody or somebody like that in the middle. And it's just, this sucks.
Yeah, Mount Cody got famous for being big.
Yeah, I mean, he was over 350. I don't know where it was, but it was big. And they just couldn't move the dude. It's the same principle. So I think, at least at times, that's something Ole Miss will do. Another guy that I'm not sure exactly how they're going to use him, because, again, it depends on the front, which makes it fun. And I've been trying to practice this pronunciation here. I'm sure you know who I speak, Stephen. Marvin Najutsup. That's how it's supposedly pronounced, according to Google.
Najutsup?
Yeah, Najutsup. I don't know if that's really accurate. I haven't heard him say it, but that's what I'm going with.
It took me 2 months to get Amon Allen down. And so I'm sure that one's going to take a while too.
Big Marvin, as I like to call him. That's much easier. He's give or take 6'7", give or take 270 to 280. He plays at St. Thomas More, which is a prep school. Most of those kids, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, redshirt, and they become 50-year seniors in high school. They want kids to develop on and off. It's a serious academic place. Like, you're not screwing around there. And he's going to come down and play for Ole Miss. Now, we've talked about the length, and it's one of the reasons they're after Antwan Jackson, who was going to announce on Friday, Bama, Ole Miss, Memphis, or Missouri. This is the same kind of deal. I imagine in a 3-man front, that's a lock. He's your strong side end. That's what he is. But in the 4-man line, it's actually a little more interesting. I don't know how strong he is. I don't know the young man. But if he's got enough grit and spit, if you will, sliding him inside on 3rd and 6 is not friendly for quarterbacks. No. Because those are some big windshield wipers when he's like, okay, I'm not getting to the quarterback on this, when they're taught to slow down, watch the quarterback's eyes, mirror him as best as you can, and simply just to jump up and try to bat the pass. The first guy that I ever saw do this when I was a kid, I don't know if you remember this, Steven Willis, Ed Too Tall Jones with the Cowboys back in there. That guy was legitimately 6'8", and he was annoying as all get out. He was a strong side end. I think he's in the Hall of Fame, but he was unbelievable. He was first pick in the draft. He played at like Tennessee State or something, and he was just a stalwart. He was the first guy that I ever saw like this. He used to knock passes down all the time. Defensive backs were really fond of Mr. Too Tall. That's the same kind of thing I think they're going to do with Marvin. But if he can even just on 3rd downs alone slide to the interior and be a defensive lineman, like you take out Ben Jarvis or Mitchell because they're gassed. On 3rd and 8, who cares if they run a draw and get 6 yards? It's still 4th down. You'll take the pass rusher and move him inside and try to get quicker, make it harder on the guard. And again, putting their hands up, his length is ridiculous. Do you think they're going to try to do some of that with the current team in long term, or am I off on this?
I think a NASCAR package is definitely in the works. Like, you could take Marvin, put him into the game, move Mitchell Turner down to the 0 tech nose guard, put him next to Ben Jarvis with the jack, and all of a sudden you have 4 guys that can cause problems in the pass game. I think it looks something like that. I think they're trying to work on something like that at the moment with Blake Purchase and Cam Franklin and Will Eccles and all those guys. They might figure out a way to get an extra pass rusher on the field for a NASCAR type package, because Pete Golding's really good at doing stuff like that. Pete gets a weird rap from Alabama fans for some reason, but the guy's just a genius at creating explosive plays for the defense. He is excellent at getting specifically defensive ends free. So in a case where, let's see, remember Marcus Davenport or Will Anderson or those guys, he is fantastic at all levels. And I mentioned Marcus Davenport because he went to Texas San Antonio, got him a first-round grade in the NFL. Pete is really good at taking care of the outside players. If you can get any type of rush up the middle, which Alabama, when he was there, they were able to do, this defense becomes a problem when anything is off schedule against them. And you saw that a little bit in 2024 with Ole Miss's defense and what they did. But I genuinely think that's the goal. You put Blake Purchase on one side, Santarin Perkins on the other as a defensive end, Cam Franklin and William Eccles. Eccles moves down to the nose guard. That defensive line's a problem for whoever's going up against. If you get the 2nd and 14, the 3rd and 10, to where you have to move the ball down the field, I think that's the goal moving forward.
I don't have any problem with it. The other two guys that I think are a little bit more on the developmental side, and this transitions us to the final part of the show, Jules Batiste, who I think is very good, and he's underrated. And it's odd because he plays for Edna Carr. They just won a state championship. It's the prominent inner city program in the state of Louisiana in New Orleans. Like, it's grotesque what they have. And he's 6'5", 230, good pass rusher. He might be able to grow into an interior play. We'll see. With his length, it's hard to say how large that human being will get. And the other one is probably the guy that nobody talks about because he's from Illinois, Keyshawn Taylor out of Guilford High School in Illinois. Like, he's more of a traditional weak side edge, 6'3", 230, probably be a jack, I would assume. But you have your bases covered already, and they're still trying to get Antwan. So Ole Miss fans should be, quote unquote, very excited about what they have. And what we're about to talk about, Stephen, with regards to the 5 for 5, it should make people very happy because their roster and their upside, these two things go together. And I think this is the right kind of staff to do it because they use the portal right. They take some developmental guys, and of course you want a few elite players too. We're going to talk about that next, right here on this crossover. Five for 5 is here, and you need to know why it's important, not only for Ole Miss, but I'll let Stephen explain because he knows better than I. For one of the, let's say, prime rivals, it's going to be very interesting as well. But 5 for 5 simply means you play from your freshman year to your senior year, but you get an extra 5th year automatically. Why does this matter for Ole Miss and mean more than, say, Oregon or Miami or Ohio State? Well, no offense to those programs, but they recruit at such a level. Very few freshmen play at those schools, and it's their 2nd year. They kind of get their feet wet beyond special teams. At Ole Miss, now you're basically redshirting your freshman year, but you might play in 10 games. Experience matters. If you don't believe me, go ask all the coaches that have been at BYU for the last 50 years that have taken all those kids in Mormon missions. Older players matter. That alone, but now you also get a little experience to go with it. A 22, 23-year-old, look, especially in the offensive and defensive line area, maybe a middle linebacker or tight end, all those years in the weight room really matter. And Steve and I were talking about this before the show. Think about like Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, all those country schools. Some of them got good facilities, but a lot of those kids come from programs that weight room, the nutrition and all that stuff. They're just okay at best. They get to college and their bodies explode. Now you get one extra year. If you use it right, look out. Tom Osborne was great at this at Nebraska. Remember that walk-on program they had? Oh, my God. They did a great job. They'd have some 50-year senior. He wasn't a long NFL player, but he was a hell of a college guy, like nose guard, offensive guard or something.
Fullback.
Yeah, they always had some walk-on fullback that was a really good player. This is the same principle. The ironic part, in my opinion, and Stephen, I want your opinion as well, Ole Miss is obviously elevated. We just talked about Ben Jarvis, Mitchell, etc. They've got a nice mix now. If you can get that group that, like Mitchell Turner, barring injury, is going to hit like that, I'm very confident. You get a couple of 5th-year seniors on the offensive line to help fill in with like some elite kid they got out of Jackson, Antonio Berry, etc. on the offensive line. On the other side, a couple, shall we say, developmental players like Keyshawn Taylor. And then you have the level like Mitchell. One guy like that starting on the D-line next to a couple of 5th-year guys, you can have a top 3 SEC O-line and D-line. If you do it right, it's NIL combination. You can't pay high for some of these kids. They got to earn it more than like Mitchell Turner's going to play as freshman. Go tell everybody now he's going to play as freshman. But some of these other guys, as 5th-year seniors, will be really, really key in my opinion. Stephen, what do you think?
Well, look at the state of Mississippi. We always talk about the state of Mississippi being a little bit different in recruiting than other states. True. Prime example of that would be Ahmed Hardy, the running back from Lawrence County, Mississippi, that went to Louisiana Monroe, transferred to Missouri, and now he's one of the best 2 running backs in the country. He couldn't get the place he wasn't quite developed. And that is a problem when you're win now. Like Lane Kiffin was very win now. We're going to go out and find guys that can help right now. We don't have time to develop. Now, the difference is for something like that, this 5-for-5 rule absolutely helps Mississippi State, absolutely helps Arkansas. People that are trying to raise themselves up, maybe they can't play the NIL game, but they can sure as heck go find Ahmad Hardy at Lawrence County, develop him, and now you have an extra year with him. As long as you can keep them, you might be in a little bit better shape. Now, I do think this 5-for-5 hurts Ole Miss just a little bit, because the reality of the whole situation is Ole Miss has gotten to the point where everybody that steps foot on that campus, they're planning on staying there for 3 years. I mean, that's just going. We're going to go to the NFL after our junior year. Sometimes they stay. Suntarine Perkins, that prime example of that. But that's just the reality of what's going on. Ole Miss isn't going and recruiting developmental 3-stars. They're trying to find 4-stars and players that can help right now. Schools like Mississippi State, schools like Arkansas, schools like Vanderbilt, those places to where the 3-star player, the developmental players are still a thing. This is a benefit for them. And Mississippi State, make fun of them all you want to. They've made a history out of turning those 3-star developmental players into good dudes and people that they can count on. And this just helps them out a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the bottom of Ole Miss's class still have to try to determine their path differently than the top. It used to be more scrunched, and Ole Miss was more than that, but they'll still have a few developmental guys. And I think they might take a few more because of the 5-year rule. They may not, but the option will be there, because that 1 year at it, no offense, the difference between somebody that's 18 and somebody that's like 22 physically is just massive.
Ask Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana won with a bunch of experienced guys last year. It's not a newsflash. That Michigan team that won it a few years ago, yeah, I know they cheated, but those were a bunch of grown men too. I mean, there ain't no doubt about it. That's what they did. They had juniors and seniors on the offensive and defensive lines. A lot of them were graduate students. So that's something to think about. I want to ask one question of you, Steven. The roster has obviously changed quite a bit for the Rebels. Where do you think it has changed the most position-wise in the last year and a half? Like going to the playoff last year and seeing you follow it as close as anybody. Where do you think the biggest difference is?
Defensive back, honestly. And this is going to seem like a shot, and it's not a shot. It's just Ole Miss was signing 8 wide receivers, and the defensive back room, it was like getting great value brand defensive backs, safeties that are 5'10", 180 pounds, those guys. Pete Golding took over. He's a defensive head coach. All of a sudden, Edwin Josephs, Jonel Aguero, all those guys are the ones that you're signing out of the portal. And because of it, the defensive backs, they're going to be a lot better, and you're not going to see what happened in that Fiesta Bowl because you're having to play 3-man fronts against Miami's offensive line. Because you can trust the guys in the back, you can play a much more aggressive front. You can do what you have to do, and that's going to make this defense be a little bit better. So I think the defensive back position is probably the most improved position, the most changed position at Ole Miss.
That's a good thing. When you have a DB that the other team tries to account for before the snap, okay, if all things are equal, don't throw it here, it changes things. They're starting to get enough athletes. I assume even after Crawford is gone, they'll have somebody else. Like they're starting to recruit, get guys that are better. Jay will be the guy this year, but he'll probably go to the NFL. After that, they might have an opportunity to kind of start that. And obviously, we've talked about it the entire show. D-line is completely changed. And that shortens the window for the amount of time the quarterback has to throw the ball down the field. You're winning on both ends of that spectrum. Steven, please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Hey, we're on YouTube at Locked On Ole Miss. We have the Everydayer Club there as lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com. And you can catch us wherever you get your podcast. We're available there as well. We like to have a good time. Come and join us.
Appreciate it. You can find the Portal Podcast all the same places you find Locked On Ole Miss: Spotify, Apple, Podbean, Amazon Music, YouTube, and everywhere else This has been a crossover, Locked On Ole Miss and the Port.